Well, by now, I'm joined by Melissa Thermidor. You're the social media manager of the NHS Blood and Transplant. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
We just saw a spike of viewers in the UK, so I guess your family and friends are watching.
Oh, I sent the link to a few people.
Very well done. And if you're watching, please do so as well, because we want as many viewers as possible. Earlier today, you were participating in a session called Social Media in Transplantation, 4 Perspectives to Raise Awareness. Just quickly, which 4 perspectives are we talking about?
We looked at the healthcare physician perspective, we looked at a donor family perspective, a patient perspective, and a journalist perspective as well. The journalist perspective being my end, leading the social media efforts at NHS Blood and Transplant. All very moving and all carried one central theme, which would be to motivate users by sharing personal stories to get them to act and actually join the organ donor register or consider organ donation in the event that something would happen to their loved ones.
Okay, that's a very clear story and distinction. What would you say that some of the differences of these perspectives were?
I think the donor family perspective and the patient's perspective was a bit more moving and a bit more personal in their efforts, and the mass media and healthcare physicians' perspectives were a bit more commercial, more focused on advertising, branding to get the message across, a bit more extreme measures, while the patient and the donor family perspectives focused more on, I think, what really matters and what actually motivates people to join the register.
All right, and those perspectives were shared. We saw all angles of it. What were some of the important takeaways that were drawn in the session?
Is to make sure you have the conversation with your family so they're aware of your wishes in the event that something were to happen to you, so that it sort of takes the burden off of them at a time when they should be grieving and shouldn't have to worry about whether to make this decision or not. It's already been made, you've already had the discussion, and they're well aware of your wishes.
But how does this relate to social media?
Well, I mean, there it is. We run wonderful campaigns at NHS Blood and Transplant. We're in the middle of National Transplant Week now, where we're asking people to use the 7 days out as part of the campaign to say, I donate, and let your family know about your wishes. Take the time out to actually have the conversation, which is the most important part.
All right, and were there any best practices shared so far?
I think overall it's just being really honest. I think it's just keeping it real was one theme throughout the session. Is to make sure that everyone knows what you think about organ donation and just be completely honest and transparent. Transparency was the key theme.
And how do we recognize if people are not real? How do you spot some?
Well, I mean, you can't really spot when someone's not being real about organ donation. I think it's to just upfront and ask them, how do you feel about this topic? Or create really engaging content like the video you shared before to make sure that, to use it as a way to sort of introduce the conversation of organ donation. With viral videos like that on social media, it's a great entry point and segue to have the conversation.
Yeah, it's the conversation starter. Yet, although, and I must say this, we see a lot of associations. ESOT aims to be one of the most innovative associations in Europe and perhaps in the world. But still, I come across some social media skeptics, even in this realm. What would you say to them?
I think the proof is in the pudding. Just look at the numbers. We've pulled in well over 10,000 registrations from social media alone in the past year. The numbers don't lie.
Exactly. Now you work at an organization that's mainly in the transplant coordination, right?
I work for NHS Blood and Transplant. We manage the register for organ donation in the UK. So it's our role to help drive users to join the organ donor register.
Only on the registration side?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Say I'm a transplant surgeon, right, or I am indeed a transplant coordinator or a physician. You said the physicians were in that room. What could or should they do with social media?
Is have conversations. I mean, again, this goes back to transparency. People want to know what happens after they decided to donate their loved one's organs. It's just making that process very clear to almost demystify, remove the myths and the barriers that many people are quite used to when it comes to organ donation.
Does that mean me tweeting from the operating room, showing what happens to organs?
You know what, it could very well be a live session of someone receiving a kidney or a liver transplant. This is what people are interested in, and as I said before, it removes the barriers when it comes to organ donation. It's just being a bit more transparent about what happens.
Exactly. Well, some folks thought that Transplant Live would be a live transplant broadcast. Well, it's not. It's the best constant. Yeah, exactly. Well, there's enough doctors. So anyway, were there any examples shared? Because always a lot of, and I'm a social media enthusiast, right? We all see the benefits, the numbers, it's all proven. Was any of the dark side shared in this session?
Yeah, I went into a bit of it, and I wouldn't call it the dark side. I mean,
But what can go wrong?
well, what can go wrong on social media? Anonymity is a big issue. Making sure that we don't identify donor families is an area that's really tough, considering that we have no control over social media. So it's just making sure that our senior nurses have that conversation with the donor families and the donor recipients as well, to make sure not to release that information as quickly as they should on social media, or just remove some specific identifying information when mentioning that they've decided to donate their loved one's organs.
So you're telling me that I shouldn't post on Facebook that I'm donating my kidney to my brother?
I'm happy for you to post on social media if you're donating your kidney to your brother, if it's a living donation and you're both aware of what's happening. But if you've just received a double lung and heart transplant, I'm asking you not to release the information that you've just received a double lung heart transplant, considering that the numbers are fairly low in terms of people who receive double lung and heart transplants in the UK. Or maybe not say so much. You could say, I just received the transplant, maybe not include when you received it, or not include.
But help me a bit. Why? Why? What would happen if you did? No. It's an interesting policy. Why is it so important to do that?
I mean, how would you feel if you just lost your son and then you went onto social media to find someone bragging about just receiving 2 organs, and you clearly realize that the organs have come from your son? It takes a bit of time. You could still be in grieving. Some people might feel really great about it, but others not so much.
And now I just start wondering, how did this policy come about? I mean, are there examples of people getting upset or?
I mean, there are always examples. People are really happy once they've received the transplant and they want to share the news with the world, but it's just a matter of putting yourself in the donor family's shoes. I understand that you've been on the list for quite some time, but understanding that someone has just lost a loved one in order for you to live.
Exactly, and then it's back to what Herman van Rompuy was talking about, a bit of solidarity with the folks still on the list.
Yeah, I mean, just remember that you were lucky, but there are still loads of others waiting, and for you to have this life, someone had to have lost theirs.
I understand that most of the initiatives are all focused on awareness, right? Becoming awareness and register as a donor.
As well, there's a bit of education, removing barriers, breaking down myths as well. A lot of people seem to think that, if you've had a tattoo or, or whatever it may be, if you've received...
Give me some myths. What are some of the myths you're taking down?
That they won't try to save you if they think that you're on the organ donor register. That's definitely not true. Doctors will continue to try to save you. Being on the register has no impact on whether they try to save your life or not. Or the fact that maybe if you've received an organ that you possibly can't become an organ donor. There's loads of myths behind that. It's just breaking down those barriers and educating users about organ donation.
Wow, beautiful. That's very clear. It's good work you're doing. Obviously, I notice you have a very in-depth marketing background. What is it like to walk around with that background in this highly medical society?
I know, it's a bit tough. At the early part of the conference today, I had to sort of get my head around things because it was very, very, very medical. But I think that's where social media comes to play, is breaking that down and making it easier to understand.